September 12, 1944. Just after noon, the roar of a returning aircraft slices through the air over RAF Station Benson in Oxfordshire. A Spitfire, Mark 11, its belly still warm from high-altitude flight, drops onto the runway, tires chirping, engine snarling, and rolls to a stop like it's carrying something alive. The pilot climbs down fast, not smiling, not even looking around. He reaches into his flight gear and hands over film canisters, exposed, precious, and urgent, to a waiting photo interpreter who's already moving before the pilot's boots hit the ground. Because whatever is inside those canisters is either going to save thousands of lives or help bury them. Within hours, the developed images land on the desk of Major Brian Urquhart at British Airborne Corps headquarters. He is only 25 years old. Too young, some think, to be the Chief Intelligence Officer for airborne operations. But he has spent the last 3 years doing little else, studying threats, patterns, enemy reactions, and the brutal truth that airborne warfare depends on one fragile thing: correct intelligence. You can't adjust a parachute landing the way you can reroute a tank column. Once the aircraft doors open, the decision is already made. Urquhart places the first photograph beneath his magnifying glass. The image is clean, sharp, taken from 30,000 feet in bright September light. Fields cut into neat shapes, thin tree lines like stitches across the land, villages sitting quiet and ordinary. Near the outskirts of Arnhem, the camera has captured something that doesn't belong in a peaceful Dutch landscape. At first, it looks like irregular shadows. Then his brain snaps into recognition. Geometric forms, hard angles, repeating silhouettes, camouflage netting draped over them like blankets. Tanks, not one, not two, dozens. Urquhart doesn't flinch, but inside him, something goes cold and heavy, because he knows exactly what those shapes mean, and he knows exactly what is about to happen. He doesn't rely on a single photograph. The records he has spent years building, his own habit of verification, push him to do what careful intelligence officers always do: cross-check. He pulls in Dutch resistance reports. He compares them to ultra-intercepts from Bletchley Park. He drags forward his own reconnaissance analysis from the past weeks. Different sources, different routes, same conclusion. German armor is sitting near Arnhem, and the largest airborne operation in history is scheduled to launch in 5 days. If you're watching WW2 Frontline Shadow right now, you already know this story doesn't end the way planners promised it would. But the terrifying part is this: the disaster wasn't a mystery. It wasn't invisible. It wasn't unavoidable. The warning was sitting on glossy photographic paper in black and white, sharp enough to count shapes under netting. Urquhart stands up, gathers the photographs, and walks down the corridor toward Lieutenant General Frederick Browning's office. The hallway feels too quiet. Somewhere, men are laughing, maps are being rolled out, teacups are clinking, and staff officers are speaking in confident voices about what comes next. Confidence is contagious in wartime headquarters, especially when the war feels like it's finally breaking your way. Operation Market Garden has been taking shape since late August. It is a breathtaking plan, almost theatrical in ambition. Drop roughly 35,000 paratroopers from around 1,500 aircraft and thousands of gliders, seize a chain of bridges across the Netherlands, and open a corridor straight into Germany. British XXX Corps, armored, powerful, impatient, would race north along a single road, cross the Rhine at Arnhem, and then drive into the industrial heartland. The dream being whispered in planning rooms is simple: end the war by Christmas. Field Marshal Bernard Law. Montgomery has momentum on his side. Paris has been liberated. German forces have retreated in what looks like chaos across France. Reports keep coming in. Ragged units, exhausted men, abandoned equipment, shattered formations. In Montgomery's headquarters, the belief hardens into certainty. Germany is cracking. One more bold strike and it collapses. Urquhart has read Montgomery's planning directive, and what strikes him isn't strategy, it's tone. It doesn't read like a question being tested against reality. It reads like a proclamation, like the ending has already been written and the war is now simply catching up. Montgomery has convinced Supreme Commander Dwight Eisenhower to give him priority for supplies and air support. This will be Montgomery's thrust, not Eisenhower's broad front approach. A single spear aimed at the enemy's heart. The plan divides the sky. The American 101st Airborne will drop near Eindhoven to seize bridges and secure the Uhl southern flank. The American 82nd Airborne will take Nijmegen. The British 1st Airborne Division, about 10,000 men, will capture the northernmost bridge at Arnhem and hold it until Exquisit's corps arrives. The timeline, 48 hours. 48 hours, on paper, sounds manageable. In real life, 48 hours in enemy territory feels like a lifetime. And here is where intelligence becomes life or death. Because lightly armed paratroopers can seize a bridge by surprise. Holding it is different. Holding it against armor is something else entirely. Urquhart enters Browning's office with the photographs and a folder of ultra-intercepts. He spreads them across Browning's desk, like playing cards that decide a man's fate. "Sir," he says, careful and controlled, "we have a problem." He points. He names what he sees. Panzer tanks, Panzer IVs, possibly Panthers, arranged in dispersed positions near Arnhem, exactly where the British 1st Airborne will be. Dropped. Then he opens the ultra file, decoded German signals traffic. It indicates the 9th SS Panzer Division, Hohenstaufen, and the 10th SS Panzer Division, Frauensburg, have been ordered into the Arnhem area by Field Marshal Walter Model in early September. They are refitting after escaping Normandy, yes, but refitting does not mean harmless. It means reorganizing, repairing, and getting ready to fight again. Urquhart's voice stays steady, but the urgency is unmistakable. Multiple independent sources agree. Resistance reports match the intercepts. Aerial reconnaissance confirms the presence on the ground. This isn't rumor. It isn't a guess. It is hard evidence. Browning barely looks at the photographs. "I think you're being overly cautious," he says, dismissive. "These are just remnants reorganizing. They won't affect the operation." That sentence, so casual, so confident, hangs in the air like smoke. Because the tanks in the photographs are not remnants, and the intercepts are not ambiguous. Urquhart leaves the office carrying the weight of what he has just failed to do. Move a man who doesn't want to be moved. And the awful truth about headquarters culture is this: once a plan becomes identity, once reputations and promises are attached, evidence stops being information and starts being an inconvenience. When Urquhart's analysis reaches higher levels, the response isn't careful skepticism. It's dismissal wrapped in authority. Montgomery's staff characterize his warnings as pessimism, nervousness, a young officer imagining threats. One suggestion floats through the halls like poison: that Urquhart lacks the experience to assess battlefield intelligence. Then the quiet weapon is used. Colonel Austin Eager, the Corps senior medical officer, is ordered to speak with Urquhart. On September 15, 1944, 2 days before the launch, Eager delivers the message: Urquhart is suffering from acute nervous strain and exhaustion. He is to take immediate sick leave. If he refuses, he will be arrested and court-martialed. In wartime bureaucracy, questioning your mental fitness is not a gentle concern. It is a career-ending verdict, a removal disguised as care. Urquhart is effectively pushed out for raising the wrong facts at the wrong time. By this point, Market Garden is not just a plan. It is Montgomery's promise. He has sold it upward. He has taken supplies away from other commanders. He has built a narrative. One bold stroke ends the war. And once a man has staked his reputation on a gamble, he becomes dangerous. Because admitting risk feels like admitting weakness. Market Garden proceeds on assumptions, each one fragile. That German forces in the Netherlands are weak and demoralized. That paratroopers can hold bridges for 2 days without heavy weapons. That XXX Corps can advance 60-plus miles on a single narrow road in 2 days. That the weather will cooperate. That German commanders will respond slowly. Reading the planning documents today, what stands out is not optimism. It's a deliberate narrowing of reality. Some intelligence summaries even mention the SS Panzer divisions near Arnhem, but those details never become central to the operational plan. Instead, a single soothing line is repeated. Opposition will not exceed poor-quality infantry supported by a few tanks. A few tanks. Urquhart's photographs showed dozens. On September 17, 1944, shortly after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the sky over England fills with an armada. Transport aircraft in long formations, gliders being towed like silent shadows behind them. Over 1,500 aircraft and hundreds of gliders lift off, turning the horizon into moving metal. It is the largest airborne assault ever attempted. Men look up from airfields and feel history passing overhead. And if you're finding this kind of deep, cinematic World War II storytelling gripping, take a second right now to like this video and subscribe to WW2 Frontline Shadow. It helps the channel reach more people who love these stories, and it tells the algorithm to keep recommending long-form WW2 documentaries like this one. Across the Netherlands, parachutes bloom. The American 101st drops near Eindhoven. The American 82nd drops near Nijmegen. The British 1st Airborne drops near Arnhem. Early reports are encouraging. The weather is clear. Many paratroopers land safely. Some bridges are captured quickly. In headquarters, optimism surges. But something is already wrong at Arnhem. Something the plan quietly tried to ignore. The British drop zones are miles away from the bridge. A long march through hostile territory with light weapons, limited radios, and no armor. Precious hours are lost, simply moving toward the objective. Hours that the Germans will not waste. Field Marshal Walter Model is in Arnhem. When the first reports arrive, he can see parachutes drifting down. He understands immediately. Contain the airborne forces. Delay the armored column. Crush the isolated troops before relief arrives. He calls SS General Wilhelm Bittrich. Under him, the 9th and 10th SS Panzer divisions, the same units Urquhart warned about. Under strength, yes, but still dangerous, still equipped, still commanded by veterans. By the time Lieutenant Colonel John Frost's battalion reaches the northern end of the Arnhem Bridge, they are walking into a closing trap. They dig in. 750 men. Orders. Hold for 48 hours. Relief never comes. XXX Corps advances up a single narrow road. 2 lanes, canals, and soft ground on either side. Any destroyed vehicle blocks the entire column. German counterattacks hit repeatedly. Delays multiply. The road becomes known as Hell's Highway. At Nijmegen, the The fight for the bridge costs time. At Arnhem, Frost's men are surrounded. Tanks close in. Buildings burn. Ammunition runs low. Wounded men lie without supplies. The rest of the British 1st Airborne is compressed into a shrinking perimeter. Radios fail. Weather turns. Resupply drops fall into German hands. Reinforcements are delayed. By September 21st, the situation is desperate. Frost's position is overrun after days of relentless fighting. XXX Corps reaches the south bank of the Rhine, but cannot cross. The objective has failed. Withdrawal comes on the night of September 25th. Under darkness, survivors cross the Rhine in small boats, while artillery pounds the river. Men drown. Men are hit in the water. Of roughly 10,000 British and Polish troops around Arnhem, only about 2,400 escape. More than 1,000 are killed. Over 6,000 are captured. The British 1st Airborne Division is shattered. Afterward, blame is redirected. Weather, radios, delays, partial success, percentages. But the core objective, crossing the Rhine at Arnhem, failed completely. And behind it all stands Major Brian Urquhart. The photographs were real. The intercepts were accurate. The tanks were there. He was right. He was removed anyway. Years later, he would reflect that institutions do not always respond to evidence. They respond to pride, to momentum, to reputation. Market Garden was not only a failure of weather or equipment, it was a failure to listen, a failure to build a plan with margin for error, a failure to adjust when reality contradicted hope. Bravery on the ground cannot fix arrogance at the top. Courage can hold a bridge. It cannot rescue itself through a flawed strategy. Arrogance kills. That is the lesson of Arnhem. Now I want to hear from you. Was Market Garden a necessary gamble or a reckless operation built on wishful thinking? Drop your take in the comments. And if you believe stories like this deserve a deeper look, share this video and help WW2 Frontline Shadow grow.